Welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. This is another episode of Veterans of Politics with Jim Jonas and Stephanie Phillips. We are really excited about today's episode. We have Lorena Biassotti,
Yes.
and running for Clark County School Board District E. One of the most important jobs that anybody can have. I'm really super excited to have both these ladies with me today. I'm probably not going to ask a lot of questions today because you know why? Because I'm not a mother. So when you start talking about the school board, it's super important to have mothers that are the lifeblood of society to explain what's good, what's bad about the school district, and how we can change it. Because all I've heard my whole life since I've been here, and I've been in Las Vegas, Nevada since 1986, and I'm a product of the Clark County School District about how bad we are. But I want to have a discussion with these two ladies on like how exactly we can fix that. So before anything else, Stephanie, do you got any rants? Something you want to get off your chest? Or?
I just would like to say to everybody, I'll leave the rants alone right now, but I would like to say for everybody to get out and vote. Yes. That is so important. And I still hear people say, my vote doesn't count. It doesn't matter. I'm not into politics. I don't want to be involved. But everybody out there listening, your vote does matter. It counts. And this election is the most important election in America's history, I believe. I have always said on the campaign trail, it is our last stand. And we are fighting for our country and for our American values, for our freedoms and our liberties, our Constitution, our flag. So please get out and vote.
Very well said. Now, do you have a bio about yourself? Please speak to who you are and why exactly you're running to be a Clark County School Board trustee.
So, first and foremost, I am a concerned mom. I am running because my kids have and are attending Clark County school districts. I've seen it get progressively worse. I came onto the scene when they were implementing the mask mandate. I was very offended that in order for my child to attend these schools, they had to literally put a mask over their face 8 hours a day. And it was outrageous to me. I would never do that to my child. For the government to impose that on me, knowing to override my care for my own children was such a violation. So I thought I would just, show up at the school board meeting, address my concerns. And little did I know that I was met with a lot of disdain and just, I felt censored and pushed away.
So keep going about, and I'm sorry, Steve. Steve's going to yell at me for this one, but just a bio about yourself, though. Where you came from, yes. How you grew up, things of that
I know.
nature.
I just have that concern is always at the top of my head, so it's what I go to quickly. But so I am a mom of 4 kids. I was born and raised in Southern California, and I was born and raised in a melting pot.
Part of Southern California?
The San Gabriel Valley, Monterey Park specifically. Okay. Mm-hmm. I went to school in Montebello. I graduated from high school there. Mm-hmm. I attended Rio Hondo College in Whittier, California. And I loved it. It was very diverse, but we didn't have these hot button issues. We just literally just saw each other as the community. And so I was raised, I went to church a lot. I had ingrained in me those values, those Christian values. And I'm Hispanic, so my parents came in the 60s to Los Angeles. They're high school sweethearts. They met in LA. They just celebrated their 50-year anniversary, and they can't stand each other, but they can't live without each other. So it's a very interesting dynamic. So I was raised in a very nuclear home, and seeing my dad go to work every day and come home. We'd go to church. My mom was always there for us, just taking us to school, picking us up. I wanted that for my kids. And so when I did get married and I had my children, I decided to do the same. I stayed home and raised them. And it is by far my, please, I don't want to get emotional. Every time I talk about my kids, it's like my heart. I touch my heart.
How old are they?
8, 9, 15, and 17.
Okay.
They are the most beautiful thing that I've ever accomplished.
It's okay for you to get emotional, though.
It is.
All of us moms are like that about our kids. I hear you.
I hardly see them these days.
And I think that's one of the problems with, like, even my intro. I completely screw that up because I get emotional too. So there's nothing wrong with emotion because that means you care.
Well, it's what drives me. It is my 4 kids are literally my reason for wanting to do any changes and see any progress in our schools and in our society. It's them. And so I stayed home and raised my kids, and I mean, I still am. And we moved here 7 years ago from Southern California. And we were at a crossroads, my husband and I, and he had a job offer here, and he said, we either stay in California, in LA, and I go to work full time. At the time, I had a 1-year-old, my son, who's now 8. And I had to weigh whether I stay in California and we both go to work and I put my kids in daycare and all of that, or we come here. And, you know, it was an easy decision for me to just move the kids over here. And so I've been here ever since. I've been enjoying my kids for the last 7 years. And it wasn't until, you know, the mandates and the COVID mania happened that, you know, kind of brought me out of my little bubble of comfort that I felt I was in. And I've been seeing, we were scratching the surface with the mandates. Mm-hmm. There's so much going on behind the curtains. And I think that was a blessing in disguise with COVID, is that it pulled the curtain back. Mm-hmm. And it exposed a lot of what was happening and what our children were exposed to. And I just couldn't sit back and watch it. This is my form of still taking care of my kids.
That the mandate thing, the COVID thing, that was a big reason why I hopped into politics as well and did what I just did. And I thought that was unconstitutional. It was un-American. And to have my kids, you know, they were in high school at the time. My son didn't even have a senior prom. They closed school, you know, his senior year. They had that graduation out at the racetrack. So at least they had some sort of a graduation, but all of the things that they did to us, and I completely agree with you. And that is something that all the parents and all these people that are going to watch this, they want to know that, because your opponent was asked the same thing. And I think that it's important for all parents to know where school board trustees stand on all issues, but especially this one, because this one was personal. Yeah. And when they're telling teachers, you have to get a vaccine. Well, who are any of those people to be telling teachers, or anyone for that matter, that they have to put something in their body that they may not want to? And to mask our kids like that really upset me. So if you're sitting on the school board, how would you vote? What would you say? What would you say to the other trustees?
I would refuse at all costs to impose anything that would violate parental rights. I mean, at the end of the day, you decide what's best for your children. And anything related to, you know, medical, because, you know, masking your children was a medical decision.
It was.
It was affecting their immune system, their mental well-being. So many children were suffering from anxiety. They were breaking out into rashes. I mean, I don't think schools should even, or the government should tell someone to take a Tylenol, you know, as benign as that is, or you force someone to drink water. I mean, it was the mandate behind it. I mean, a suggestion and advise, that all of that, you can do that. But to force someone to do anything and on their children and with their children, I think is especially outrageous for parents.
Yeah.
So sitting on the school board, if I would never violate parental rights. I am a huge advocate of that. And I completely respect that we have the utmost right to protect our children without any type of infringement on that. So that's how I would decide.
Okay, so let me ask you this though, and I agree with you, but what legal authority as a school board trustee would you have to actually adjust policy that's enacted by the school board? Like, if it's coming down from the federal level and the government's telling you have to do this, how specifically as a school board trustee would you be able to go, no, I don't want my kid to have to, I don't think kids should have to wear a mask. I don't think they should have to take a vaccine. How specifically could you do that as a school board trustee and within your legal rights?
Yeah. So the school board does their interpretation of, for example, if there's an NRS that states, you have to respect or mention some type of, I'm just giving an example, anti-racism and bullying, and how the school board implements that is where the decision lies among the trustees. So we would decide, come up with an agenda, discuss it, put an item on the agenda, and, put policy together, because that's what the trustees do. So when it came to the mask mandate, I believe it was Sisolak, right, that did the mask mandate. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, to be honest with you, to what degree the school board could have, refrained from masking children and having that decision, because I sat at the school board meeting when JARA made the decision to implement the mask mandate across all levels of the schools, K through 12. At the time, I don't know if Sisolak, when he, imposed a mask mandate, if it was literally for every child sitting in a classroom K through 12, that was JARA's decision. So those are things we have to look at. I would have loved to see someone advocating for parents and, the reactions they were having, but that was not the case. We were shunned for having any kind of dissenting opinion when it came to the mask mandate.
That's so true. Yeah, I watched a lot of that. There's so many things I want to talk about. I want to try and go in order. As far as a school board trustee, can you explain, and you hit on a little bit, but explain how involved you guys are in curriculum, choices that they make, how that's put together, and some of the things that you're responsible for. Can you tell people
Yes,
about
so
that?
It is the job of the school board to implement policies, to discuss them. How we come across these decisions has to be a discussion amongst all the trustees, and set the vision of the board. That's one of the big ones, and hire the superintendent who will ultimately implement these policies. But it is the job of the trustees to discuss these issues and put policy together. And as far as the curriculum also, it is our job to review that. And if we have a concern, we can call for professionals to have a presentation. I do want a deeper dive into DEI and the effects and the positive and negative outcomes of DEI and what kind of evidence we have of the results that those policies have yielded. I have yet to see a presentation at the school board on anything like that. So I think that's one of the, I would love to have an item on the agenda that discusses DEI and the effects that it's had on our children, and restorative justice is another one. We've seen since 2019 when JARA implemented it, there's been an increase in violence on campus. So I haven't seen a presentation from experts that say the pros and cons to restorative justice. And I know my opponent calls for more of that same policy. So it's very alarming to me. It's the reason I'm here.
Where do you think that threshold should be as far as kids being expelled when it comes to violence, bullying, things like that? I know sometimes people want to be a little bit lenient, give them a second chance, but when teachers are being attacked, students being attacked by more than one student, they're, one's ganged up on, where does that threshold lie for them to be expelled and never come back to the district?
There should always be consequence for misbehavior, always. As, cussing the teacher out, throwing something across the room, and any type of disrespect has to be met with consequence. But suspension and expulsion needs to, depending on the severity of that behavior, when it comes to violence, there's zero tolerance for violence. That is something that needs to be uprooted immediately. And I think it sends a message to the rest of the students that it will disrupt your life completely if you resort to violence in schools. And we need to separate those students from the rest of the population in the schools, because they're creating a whole class of victims when they disrespect the teacher and get away with it. Mm-hmm. When they assault a student and they're suspended a few days and then they're back in school. I've heard a lot of feedback when it comes to that. There's apparently, from what I hear, principals that want to protect their star rating. So they discourage that type of expulsion because it hurts their scores, their scoring. So I think we need to take a closer look at that. That shouldn't be the case, where any type of that misbehavior isn't automatically dealt with. I would like to see a separation from those kids immediately from the rest of the school. I have ideas that I've been floating around that I would love to sit down and discuss with the rest of the trustees. But those discussions need to be on the table immediately. And new ideas need to be brought in. One of my ideas is that I actually heard it from Paul White, which I thought was a brilliant idea.
Mm-hmm. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
Very smart.
Yeah.
Hey, Paul.
Yeah. I really enjoyed hearing his speech, but parental training, having some type of training for parents when it comes to before we integrate kids that have misbehaved and have resorted to violence, we need to offer some type of training for parents, at least for a day before, so it would help them too to manage the situation at home, because it really is where the root of the problem is. And that's another thing. I really think we need to focus on the root of the problem. I think it's manifesting in the class and in the school, but it's coming from somewhere. So we need to engage the parents and bring them in immediately when this happens.
Okay. I agree with you on everything you said. But here's the thing. When it comes to reality, nuts and bolts of how exactly the school board works. So you get elected as a school board trustee. All right, well, you really don't have any say of what the agenda is, when the meeting times are, unless you are either the superintendent or the president of the school board. So let's just say your meeting is Wednesday at 6:00 at night. You'll get the agenda at 6:00 at night on Monday. So you can't control the agenda unless you're in one of those two core roles. So how do you enact all this change that you want to?
Well,
and I mean, that's inside baseball. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is because the school board trustee that used to be there she's the one that explained to me, like, I can't, and her name was Danielle Ford. And she said, we really have no say over this.
Well, that's not what I've come to find out. It takes about...
Well, tell me where Danielle and I am wrong.
Okay, so if 3 trustees convene and call for an item to be... No, I think they have to convene to call for a special meeting.
Okay.
And then, you can suggest an item to be reviewed and be on the agenda. But it is up to, that's the threshold, I believe. It's 3 trustees can come together and call for an action to be taken.
So basically, that was a cop-out on her part? I'm just saying, I like...
She's pleading the fifth, Jim.
No, that's fine. And I really appreciate you answering that question, because this is something we had a previous guest on a couple weeks ago. Didn't understand his core role at all. Didn't even know what a state senator did.
Who?
I'm not going to name his name. I'm not going to put
Senate
him out
District 18, folks. The Democrat candidate.
Yeah.
Senate District 18. Rewatch that interview with veterans in politics.
It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Oh, my goodness.
But I really appreciate that you're bringing that up, because I've heard this from several school board trustees. Like, well, we can't actually do that. Well, they actually could. They're just being lazy. And I'm not calling Danielle Ford out, calling her lazy, because actually Danielle Ford taught me a lot about the school district. So I'm not calling you out. I'm just saying that, like, you understand there's a way to do it. And there's a way to do anything if you really want to.
More than anything, I want to use my platform to engage parents and bring them into the conversation. So I would love to be in that position where I can, inform parents, hey, this is coming down the pipeline. This is what's being reviewed. This is going to be on the next agenda item. And have them, have their feedback, because their opinions matter. At the end of the day, they elect. We're just, a vessel reflecting their opinions and their wills. So I want to bring their opinions out to the table when it comes to it.
I'm going to pose this question to both of you a little bit, if you don't mind, Stephanie. On this one, I'm confused because my mom, God rest her soul, was a very effective parent on this one. My mom knew what I was doing, where I was, like old school, like when those lights come on, your butt better be home. So where have we gotten to the point where now it's like parents aren't as involved with their children's lives as they used to be? Now, this is irrelevant to the school board. I'm just asking.
As a whole, it's happening.
Because I like to learn. So I have 2 amazing mothers sitting in front of me right now. So I want to know, where have we fallen off to where now all of a sudden it's like, my kids are going to school, that's the government's problem.
I call it parental alienation. Yeah. And I think the government has played a huge role in that. We've empowered children to make their own decisions for a while. The more time goes on, we see it's just insane. It's insane where we're at a point where kids can literally make life-altering decisions, and parents have to abide by that. So we lost control of the reins. And all I want to see is parents be back in control, because no one is going to care more for our own children than us parents. And not the government, not the school board trustee, not our state. It literally is with us where the real valid concern for our kids is. So we need to be back in control. We need to be in that driver's seat when it comes to the decisions that affect our children the most.
You really want me to answer that question?
Yeah.
I think it's many things. The breakdown of the nuclear family. People, not a lot of people go to church anymore. And they've taken God out of a lot of things in this country. Discipline, when I went to school, they had paddles and you got spanked and there was discipline. And what comes with disciplining children is responsibility, accountability, and they have respect for authority. So the younger generation, they don't respect authority anymore. They are entitled. Parents are not involved. Either some are just lazy, they don't want to be involved. Some have to work so many jobs because they're a single parent. With more single parents, and I've been a single mom. You know, my kids were 2 and 5 when I got divorced, and I've been a single mom, you know, this whole time.
And you have two amazing kids.
Thank you. But that took a lot of work, and that took a lot of time into my kids. You know, I was there all the time. I was very engaged, and that's a commitment that you make to your kids. And I wanted them to be responsible and productive and all of that. So you really get out what you put in, and that goes for our kids. But there's a lot of things, you know, that broke down from our generation when we all grew up compared to the generations now. And I think a lot of that starts with discipline in the home and in school. Now it's like, you know, the teachers can hardly discipline or do anything with these kids because God forbid you say something wrong to them and all this. So it's gone from, you know, you earn your trophy to a participation trophy. If you can look at it in that light, it's just a completely different culture change.
And I think they really stripped the authority from parents and from teachers. So there's this disregard for authority, and I think it transcends the classroom, because once they leave the classroom and they're in society, you see the crime rates going up, and you see the videos of them, you know, just looting the stores and robbing liquor stores, and you wonder of the parents. I mean, any one of us would have thought, my parent sees me on camera, I'm done, you know? I mean, the blue in the face. I mean, it's just, there's just no respect.
And speaking of parents, in these school board meetings, I've seen many videos of this, and parents come down there, they're upset about whatever the issue is. And there has been many parents upset about certain kind of books that have been put into schools. And I'll get to the book in a minute because I want to show you something. But as far as when you have a room full of parents down there, and like these parents are reading basically pornographic, you know, very explicit, vile sexual acts, and the board cuts off their microphone because you can't say that in public. You can't say that out loud because it's so horrific. But they give this to our kids to read. So if you're sitting up there at one of these meetings and you're a trustee and the chair turns off the microphone of this parent, what are you going to do? Are you going to stand up for these parents and tell that chair, don't you dare turn off that microphone. You let these parents talk. Are you going to have the courage to stand up to these people that are trying to silence the parents?
100%.
Good.
And
say that louder. Say that right there.
1,000%. I think they effectively proved the point of the parents by cutting off their mic and saying that the language was too graphic. That's exactly the point. That if you can't even say it out loud, why would you okay this for our children? And I just, you know, when it comes to these books, I was asked at one of the PAC endorsement interviews, they said, if you were sitting there on the board and you had these parents, you know, repeatedly showing up and disrupting the meetings, how would you handle it? And I said, it would not have happened more than one time. Why repeat incidents if one time should have been enough for you to be made aware that this is a material in the classrooms? As trustees, you should have sat down and discussed this. We're here to protect children and educate them. Parents are outraged. We're violating the innocence of these kids. We have no right to do this. Why weren't these discussions being had? And that parents had to resort to this. So those repeat incidents and board meetings, that's what parents had to resort to. It wasn't by choice. It wasn't for fun.
So you would interrupt the meeting and tell them to let the parents speak?
Oh, absolutely. That mic is going back on, because if our children can hear this, they can too.
Yeah. So this one book, Gay, Gender, Queer, All Boys Aren't Blue. Okay. So this book has, and this is just one of the pages.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen that, right?
I've seen it for a few years now. I've been trying to get
So this book, for reference, looks like two male students, young kids, and one is performing oral sex on the other. And this book, there was parents that complained about this book to a North Las Vegas school. And on this complaint form, it doesn't say what school. But after their investigation of this, the principal signed off on this book to keep it in the library. And it says, after the committee review of the book, specific pages listed, like the one I showed you, and available reviews, the decision was made to leave the school library resource, they call this a resource, in the library on open shelving. So when you have books like this, because this isn't the only one, is this something that the board, you see these books as part of the curriculum and you weigh in on what kind of educational value is that going to have on our kids? Do they need to be taught this? Of course they don't. Of course they don't. So where do you fall into that, and what can you do about that?
So there's a policy for that. It's policy 6160 or 6150, I'm not too sure. But it empowers librarians to approve these types of books. And when a parent, requests that these books be reviewed, that is where a principal has, decides whether it goes back on the shelf or it's removed. It should be up to the trustees right now to develop a policy where whatever parents, if they're contesting these books, we need to be able to override a librarian approving it or not. So
how about an opt-out form for the parents when they see this kind of material before their child is exposed to it? It's up to the parents. This kind of material, this kind of stuff, I'm all for teaching the kids birds and the bees, how to prevent pregnancy, STDs, the standard stuff. This kind of stuff, there is no value in this at all. So that should be up to the parents. And if they're going to force this, then the parent should be able to opt out and say, no, I'm not going to have my child participate in this type of book.
It's interesting. Back in the day when you used to rent a movie that was, those X-rated movies, they actually had a section where only adults could go into because it had explicit material. And they can't even do that for the libraries to separate the book. Mm-hmm. I know personally of students that went into the library, took a picture. The books were promoted. They weren't even in the shelves that they had to look from, but on the corner shelf, and promoted during, whatever event, Pride event or whatever they were having. But it's outrageous to us parents that any one of our students can go in there and read pornographic material, because that is what it is. Mm-hmm. And I know there was an author in town recently who was bashing, of course, the Monster Liberty, and even though they're representing the concern of parents, a legitimate concern, look past the title, because the media has done a great job of just defaming and slandering the name. So they hear the name and automatically but look past the title. It's just a group of moms and parents that are concerned about these books. Mm-hmm. And this author came into town and said that, I couldn't believe what I was reading. She said, if children are reading these books and they're getting sexually aroused, then they have a problem. The problem is somewhere else. Why would you even have any type of material that can do to get there? It was outrageous to me to hear that, because she was shifting the blame on the students. Oh, it's not us putting pornographic material. It's the way you're receiving this pornographic material that is the problem. So I think those policies need to be reviewed, revised. I'm all for having a discussion on how we can go about developing a committee to review these books, but parents need to be engaged. Yeah. And we need their feedback. If they have legitimate concerns, they need to be taken into account immediately.
Yeah. All right. So let me ask you this question, because I agree with everything you're saying, but I'm trying to be practical about it, because unfortunately, too many parents have just given up control to their kids' curriculum, what they read, write, everything, to the government. But as a school board trustee, how can you actually give more control back to the parents and get parents involved to be more active in what their kids, or the curriculum that their kids are doing? Because unfortunately, not everyone is a good mom like Stephanie Phillips or like yourself. There's a lot of moms that are just like, oh, good. Maybe my mom felt this way sometimes too. God rest her soul, but like, all right, let the teacher deal with this. I don't know. And just send me on my way. And my mom wasn't that way, but how specifically can you enact it and give parents back more control? But you gotta also understand that, like, there's a lot of parents that just don't want that control back. The government is the babysitter now.
So that's one thing I've noticed, is that parents have been made to believe that they don't know better, that you need, qualifications in order to be able to direct the curriculum. So they leave that in control of the government, or whatever curriculum, the decisions are based on. But it's not true. We have common sense. We know better. And right now it's really easy to tell right from wrong. It's very black and white. And I do want parents engaged, like you mentioned. How I would do that, I would use my platform. And I think parents have a golden opportunity right now to have someone reflect their voices. It's now. And I don't want to see that opportunity go to waste, because I know my opponent wants to join the school board and just join that group think where they're just all going to abide by the same policies. I don't want to do that. I really want to genuinely reflect the concern of parents. And so I want to use their feedback through emails, anything. I'd be happy to print it out and take it to the board. Like, this is parents that don't agree with what you're saying.
Maybe on that sex education curriculum, maybe the schools, and you could implement something like this, that all course material and the curriculum be sent to the parents before the schools even starts. And they have to review the material, sign off that, yes, my child can see this, this, or this. Or you have an opt-out of, no, this. Let the parents decide, because that's where it starts. It's in the home. The parent explains to the child about the birds and the bees. And if they have further questions on something more explicit, or something, maybe they saw something like this on the internet, that should be for the parents to tell them.
There is a process. And for example, when the sex ed committee would convene, they would publicly post that they were having these meetings, and they would talk about, the curriculum that they were going to adopt. They would vote on it. Well, first of all, the trustees choose the sex ed board, and they have to vote on who they're going to decide goes in there. That's why it's so important that we vote for a trustee that's going to reflect the concern of parents, because then we take that into account when we're voting in the sex ed committee. Right. So when the sex ed committee convenes and then they propose the curriculum, they discuss it, they have public comment where a parent can show up and speak and object and, just lend their opinion. If there are people that sitting there that just don't care, your opinion is not going to matter. It goes back to the same thing. You can state your opinion, but whether it's taken into consideration or not is completely up to them. And I would not appoint someone that would disregard parents the way that, the sex ed committee was appointed in years prior, where we had a sexologist on the board who had no children, who, when we would show up, I know one of the curriculums that they had chosen for the sex education was from Planned Parenthood. And I had done my homework, went on the website, and the first thing I saw on the website was a girl that said, "I think I am transgender." Right off the bat, it was to the point. So I started doing a deep dive, and sure enough, this nonprofit that was bringing advocates for youth, the curriculum had transsexuals on the board, or the word making these decisions for the curriculum. So we just have to put the right people in place for it to matter, for the concerns of parents to matter.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the transgender issue, I wanted to get into that as well. What do you feel about minors being able to transition and have surgery without parental consent? Just that concept.
I think it should be against the law. I don't understand how it's legal for a child to take life-changing decisions when, they're still developing. We don't entrust them with any other type of decision. I mean,
you can't vote until you're 18.
Right.
There's that.
You can't drink till you're 21.
Right. So how can you self-mutilate yourself, and the parents can't even be told that?
And which is why you have...
That's just my opinion.
Yeah, there's a website called transitionjustice.org that has people that, became adults after they had done their self-harm and, mutilated their body parts, and they're suffering for it. They're on constant medication to prevent infection, and they have missed out on a normal sexual lifestyle. So they're subjected to so much. It's just they're put down a road of pain and constant medical intervention. And had they known that, they wouldn't have done it, but they couldn't have known better because they were children.
Right.
So it shouldn't be ever allowed for a child to take those decisions unto themselves.
And what about when they want to put boys in girls' private spaces, the locker rooms, put them in their sport programs? So when it comes to your role as a trustee, how would you handle something like that? What do you think about that?
It's an automatic no way possible that any boy would participate in any girl's sports, in any girl's activities. They are different. Their genders are different. They need to be respected. I always think of my 17-year-old daughter in this type of scenario. And I picture her being in a locker room and changing and having a boy and glancing at, a male body part next to her. The trauma it would cause to my child, and for the school to be okay with this, and these legislators and administrators to approve of this, as a parent, it hits hard.
I asked your opponent that because she has a daughter. I have a daughter. So that gets personal.
Yes.
With moms, especially. Absolutely. Dads too, because they're very protective.
Oh, yeah.
But with a mom, and I said that I asked the same thing. She had no answer.
I know.
So that, to me, it is stunning that these liberal politicians, and I don't care what seat they're in, that they want to protect the rights of one, but then disregard all of the others that are there, and they don't care about these people because their agenda,
right,
they are shoving down our throats. And I would love for parents to stand up, and I talked about this on the campaign trail a lot, was, about Title IX and, funding for these schools. that do this kind of thing and withholding that from them. Parents, it's really going to have to come from the parents.
It takes courage.
It does.
And I think it's cowardice when you want to, you don't want to make it clear where you stand because you want to fall in line and you want the approval of the sitting trustees that are all in favor of this. And you need to be courageous when you're standing up for your kids. I would gladly do this and a lot more for my kids. And I will just draw the line on what's right and wrong. And that is just absolutely wrong. It's outrageous. It's insane.
It's not safe either.
Yeah.
It's not safe at all.
It's absolutely dangerous. Mm-hmm. And, we wouldn't put our girls to, go into a football game and just, good luck. Just, hope you do well. And they get a ball thrown at them at the way boys play. We wouldn't do that to a girl. Why do we allow a boy to just decide, take it upon himself to insert himself into female sports? And then all our girls are at risk of something happening. And we don't have to wait until it happens. We've seen it happen across the country. Right. There are stories coming out. There was a girl that suffered brain damage just because of one of the volleyballs that got spiked on her head. Mm-hmm. Why do we have to wait for that to happen? So we can end up with another lawsuit and more of a budget deficit because now they have to settle for that. I mean, It's never ending. Just be clear on what's right or wrong. Abide by the parents. If you don't get disgruntled parents and unhappy parents, you will have no lawsuits. Mm-hmm. It's that simple.
Well, and okay, so this is my last statement on this one. The other thing too is I always follow money. At the end of the day, it really frustrates me that I've been to, I'm not gonna lie, maybe 5 school board meetings in my life. And it's funny, not funny, but really irritates me when parents are being ignored, but at the same time, when I get my property taxes, that's what funds the schools. Mm-hmm. So explain to me why you can look at me and say I don't have a right. I'm paying your salary. Of course I have a right.
Absolutely.
And that's the other thing that really drives me nuts. And then, think you know more than I do? Now, you both know more than I do when it comes to kids, because I'm not a dad. I've never had kids, so obviously I respect your guys' opinion. But at the end of the day, for a school board trustee to go, oh, well, you're out of order because you're bringing this up, it's I paid your salary.
Right. Degrees don't equal common sense. We've seen that with the Supreme Court. You had a woman with all the accolades and all the degrees in the world, and she sat there and couldn't define what a woman was, right? Which is outrageous. It's common sense, Yeah. It's biology. You can't deny it. Now they want to deny biology, but at first they were all about listen to the scientists. Now if a scientist tells you that it's XX and XY chromosome and that's it, that's biology, now they want to deny it. How convenient. But we do have completely a say in how our children are being educated because we're paying for it. And that's another thing that parents have resorted to is just paying more, just getting a tuition paying tuition at a private school so they can get quality education and they can have material that actually won't harm their children, won't violate the innocence of their kids. So they have to resort to that, and they're paying for 2 educations, actually. Mm-hmm. So it's unfair. Mm-hmm. It's really unfair.
All right. Well, did we cover everything you wanted to discuss today, or is there anything else? Another question that Stephanie or I didn't ask.
I have a couple of things that I want to bring up. I want to ask you, we're last. We've been last for a long time in education in this state. And I want to know what your opinion is, where that breakdown is, and why we're last, and how we can not be last.
I think, first of all, the standards have to be high. We have to expect more from our kids. But I know that we've really changed. So many changes have happened. They keep implementing new age concepts and new curriculum and new grading standards and new policies and discipline policies that have yielded more negative outcomes. And so I think we have the roadmap. We need to go back to the traditional way of teaching, even though I know that I was reading somewhere that children are actually, there's a higher graduation rate now with the lower proficiency in reading and writing. So the numbers are not reflecting really what's happened. It's actually, the education has gone worse. And I think we need trustees that are looking at the material and are just making decisions based on the results, on what's right or wrong, and implementing change. But from what I've seen in CCSD, it's failed policies and getting more of what they already see is failing. So it's become worse.
Is there a policy in place? We had talked about food waste in schools, and 1 in 4 homes are food challenged homes in the Valley. And a lot of people don't know that. There's a lot of hungry kids out there. And with all the food that gets thrown away, is there a policy in place? Should there be a policy in place for every single school in the state where, fruit, apples, oranges, bananas, drink, the things that are packaged and not, spoiled or used each day, those could be packaged up and given to these kids and these families that need that. So is that a policy, and should it be?
I don't know if it is, but it should be. Because I would hate to see all that just go to waste when it can actually help someone. If we can help kids outside of the school and with the situation at home, why aren't we doing that? I would love to see that. And again, those are discussions that the trustees can have and, implement policies, create policies, make decisions on them. The common denominator is the well-being of our kids. So that should be what guides us really in how we implement and decide policies. So I would love to see something like that.
Okay. I always say this. Steve always teases me. One last question. Would you like to see a policy, or just because we always hear Clark County School District is ranked, I've heard it as high as 36. I've heard it as low as 51. Would you like to see not exactly the rankings change, but expose where these rankings come from? Because I've heard a couple different theories, and I'm not sure which one's completely right. But so the Federal Board of Education automatically dings us because we don't fund all-day kindergarten. We don't provide for free food for all of our students, and we don't provide as a state. We don't provide for lifetime insurance for teachers, even if they've only taught for a year. So we automatically get dinged on all 3 of those. Would you like to see just a report that comes out and goes, okay, well, why is the Clark County School District ranked 51st? Can you explain that to me? Is it bad teachers? Are we not paying teachers enough? And also graduation rates. It's ridiculous that someone attends a high school their freshman year, but only spends 1 semester in Clark High School in Clark County, but then leaves because his parents moved to Florida, but that kid doesn't actually graduate high school. Now that reflects on the graduation rate of Clark High School. Would you like to see a breakdown of that so you can actually share that to parents? The school district isn't really doing that bad of a job. It's because the federal government is ranking us low because we're not paying enough money?
Well, I think it's
a complicated question.
It's a combination of
I'm
things.
still trying to figure it out
Yeah,
myself.
it's definitely a combination of things. And with teachers and teacher retention, we have to make sure we get qualified teachers. I know that I'm hearing so much feedback now that I've been campaigning, and it's been amazing. And I talk to so many different people and get different perspectives. There was one in particular, an applicant to become a teacher. She had her degrees, and she got denied. She didn't understand why. I'd like to know why, because she seemed very qualified. And if we want to hire teachers and they have the qualifications for it, let's bring them on board. I know that we're hiring substitutes with just a high school diploma. And, they come into the class and they're gone the next day. And all of a sudden, you have two classes that they have to split up amongst other classes. And it's just creating so much chaos. And, the students don't feel that connection to the teacher because they're constantly changing. Or it's a teacher that's just a substitute that maybe doesn't have the vocation for it. It's just taking on the job because it was, a job opening like any other. So we want to make sure that we get qualified teachers that have that talent and that passion to teach. We need good teachers. We need to retain them once they're there, because now we have a problem with teachers that say they feel like they're being indoctrinated. And they have to take all this training now on DEI, and they have to read the oppressed versus the oppressors and the gender roles and how to discourage children from boys identifying with just the color blue and girls, and we have to change that up. They don't like it.
Protected, either too, with violence in school.
And on top of that, they're subjected to kids that are receiving soft discipline and counseling as opposed to
expulsion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Removal.
Right. No tolerance.
Removal. So it's just a combination of things, but teachers don't feel appreciated. The good ones are leaving. We have set the bar really low for just hiring. We want to fill that gap of teachers. So we're bringing on teachers with just a high school diploma. And I think it's exacerbating the problem. So we need to go back to the drawing board and hire good qualified teachers.
And pay them.
Yes, and respect them.
Yeah, pay them.
In the classroom, right.
All right, so we're running a little tight on time because I keep talking. I said I was going to let Stephanie talk most of the time, but I always put my foot in my mouth. So anyway, so what I need you to do is state your name, what position you're running for, and make sure that people know your contact information and how to get involved with your campaign.
So where do I look?
Look into the camera because he's going to zoom in on you.
My name is Lorena Biassotti. I'm running for Clark County Trustee, District E. You can check my website out at lorena4ccsd.com. You can email me at lorena4ccsd@gmail.com. And I'm on X, Lorena4ccsd, Instagram, Facebook. It's all Lorena4, the number 4, CCSD. And I'm open to any and all communications. I do want to urge everyone, please get out and vote. Tell your neighbors, text out to your coworkers, to your friends, to your long-lost cousins. Just get them all to the voting booth because it's now or never. And we're at a very critical moment where CCSD can make a turn for the right, for the better, or a turn for the worse.
And tell them where District E is. We forgot to ask that.
Yes. So I overlap Congressional District 3 entirely, which is all of the west side. A part of it is Lone Mountain, runs down the west of the 215, Summerlin, Sun City, Rhodes Ranch, all the way south to Blue Diamond. And it cuts a little bit into Spring Valley, so west of Spring Valley. And you can always find out what district you lie in at ccsd.net.
So, Lorena, I just want to say thank you very much
You're
for coming
very welcome.
in.
Thank you for
really
having me.
appreciate you for being willing to step up and run for office. And I just really have so much respect for active mothers.
Thank you.
Because it's something that is, it's missing in this society. So with that being said, I'll be quiet now. This is Jim Jonas. Stephanie Phillips,
Thank
with
you.
another episode of Veterans of Politics. And until next time.
And get out and vote.